The observation tower of Meridian Colony stood like a needle against the amber sky of planet Novaris. Lieutenant Eva Reeves watched the horizon through reinforced glass, her fingers drumming against the metal railing. 3 years she had spent on this distant world, maintaining diplomatic relations with the Krathyn Empire, and never once had she seen their warships break formation like this. "They are coming," whispered Thorn, the Krathyn liaison officer assigned to the human outpost. His silver scales caught the light as he shifted nervously. "The Warlord Council has made their decision." Eva turned to face him. "What decision?" Thorn's vertical pupils contracted. "Your people have been deemed weak. The Council believes humans possess technology worth taking, but lack the strength to keep it. They send the Behemoth." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Eva had heard stories about the Behemoth, the Krathyn's ultimate weapon, a creature engineered over centuries to be the perfect destroyer. It had leveled entire cities on 7 different worlds. No army had ever stopped it. "How long do we have?" Eva asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. "It arrives at sunset. 3 hours, perhaps less." Eva activated her communicator. Reeves took command. "We have a situation. Authorization code Sierra 7. I need an immediate link to Earth." The response came faster than she expected. "Commander, this is General Wei at Central Command. We have been monitoring the situation. The Behemoth deployment was anticipated." Anticipated? Eva felt her jaw tighten. "Sir, this creature has destroyed civilizations. We have 200 people in this colony and minimal defenses. Maintain your position, Commander. We are sending support. You will recognize the asset when it arrives. We out." The line went dead. Eva stared at the communicator, then at Thorn. "Your people are making a mistake." "Perhaps," Thorn replied, though his tone suggested he did not believe it. "But the Warlord Council sees only that humans build cities of glass and metal, that you farm instead of hunt, that your warriors carry devices instead of claws. They think you soft." Eva walked to the edge of the observation deck. Below, the colony stretched out in neat geometric patterns. Greenhouses where earth plants grew in alien soil, research facilities where scientists studied Novaris ecosystems, living quarters where families had made homes light years from their birth world. All of it about to be tested. The colony alarm began to wail. Through the growing dusk, Eva saw it. The Behemoth arrived not in a ship but walking, having been dropped from orbit in a reinforced pod that cratered the ground 5 kilometers from the colony perimeter. It stood 30 meters tall, a nightmare of bioengineered muscle and armor plating. 6 legs supported a body designed purely for destruction. Its head was a wedge of bone and fury, and from its back rose 3 rows of blade-like spines that glowed with internal heat. The Krathyn warships orbiting Novaris broadcast the traditional challenge across all frequencies. "Humans of Meridian Colony, you face the Behemoth chosen instrument of Krathyn might. Surrender your technology and submit to the Empire or be destroyed. You have until the creature reaches your walls to decide." Eva watched the Behemoth begin its march. Each step shook the ground. The colony's automated defense turrets fired, but their rounds bounced harmlessly off its armored hide. A group of Krathyn warriors followed at a distance, observers come to witness the inevitable conquest. "You should evacuate," Thorn said quietly. "There is no shame in recognizing superior force." "No," Eva replied. "There is shame in abandoning your home without a fight." She descended from the tower and walked to the colony's main gate. Behind her, 200 humans gathered, not in panic but in determined silence. They had families here, lives built through years of hard work. They had not come to the stars to run at the first sign of danger. The Behemoth was 2 kilometers away now. Eva could feel its footsteps through the ground. She reached for the small whistle that hung on a chain around her neck, a gift from her grandmother, polished smooth by 3 generations of hands. "Commander," called Dr. Rashid from the crowd. "What are we doing?" "What is the plan?" Eva placed the whistle to her lips. "We are reminding the Krathyn that humanity did not come to the stars alone." She blew. The sound was sharp and clear, cutting through the rumble of the approaching Behemoth. For a moment nothing happened. The Krathyn observers shifted, confused by this strange human ritual. The Behemoth continued its march, now less than a kilometer away. Then the sky darkened. Something massive descended through the clouds, wings spanning wider than any Krathyn warship. It was covered in scales that shimmered between deep emerald and midnight blue, and when it opened its jaws, Flame licked at the edges of teeth longer than Eva was tall. The dragon landed between the colony and the behemoth with earth-shaking force, folding wings that could have covered the entire main plaza. "Meet Tempest," Eva said, walking forward to place her hand on the dragon's foreleg. "She has been with my family for 4 generations. We do not keep them in zoos or use them as weapons of conquest. They are our partners, our companions, and when needed, our protectors." The behemoth had stopped, its tiny brain registering a threat it had never encountered before. It roared, a sound like tearing metal, and charged. Tempest responded by rearing up on her hind legs and releasing a torrent of blue-white fire that turned the ground between them into a river of molten glass. The behemoth skidded to a halt, confused and injured, burns marking its supposedly impenetrable armor. It tried to circle, looking for weakness, but Tempest was faster despite her size. She moved with the grace of a creature that owned the sky, her tail whipping around to strike the behemoth's flank with enough force to crack armor plating. In the sky above, 3 more shapes appeared, smaller than Tempest but no less magnificent. They circled in formation. Eva smiled. Command had not sent 1 dragon. They had sent 4. The Krathyn observers stood frozen. In their warships, the Warlord Council watched in stunned silence as their ultimate weapon, the creature that had broken worlds, retreated before a species they had thought defenseless. The standoff lasted only minutes, but those minutes rewrote centuries of Krathyn understanding. Warlord Prime Vex watched from his flagship as the behemoth, his people's apex creation, backed away from the human dragon with something his warrior species had rarely expressed. Fear. "Impossible," hissed Sub-Commander Krell. "The scans showed no such creatures on their homeworld." "Then their scans deceived us," Vex replied, his claws digging into the arms of his command throne. "Or we saw only what they wanted us to see." On the ground, Eva kept her hand on Tempest's scales, feeling the dragon's heartbeat thunder through muscle and bone. The 3 smaller dragons had landed now, forming a protective perimeter around the colony. The behemoth, injured and confused, had retreated to its drop zone where it paced in agitated circles. Thorn approached carefully, his scales rippling with colors Eva had learned to recognize as shock. "Commander Reeves, I do not understand. Your world has cities, farms, and schools. Where do you hide such creatures?" "We do not hide them," Eva replied. "We simply do not parade them for every visiting species to catalog. Dragons are sacred to us, Thorn. They are family. Would you broadcast the location of your own children to potential enemies?" The Krathyn liaison had no answer to that. His people had never considered that weakness might be a disguise, that a species could possess power and choose not to display it. A new transmission crackled across all frequencies. "Human Commander, this is Warlord Prime Vex. We request parley." Eva glanced at Tempest, who lowered her massive head and made a sound somewhere between a purr and a growl. "Permission granted in her own way." "Parley accepted, Warlord Prime. You may land a shuttle at the coordinates I'm sending. Come unarmed." 30 minutes later, Vex stood before Eva in the colony's meeting hall. The Warlord was impressive even by Krathyn standards, his scales darker than Thorn's, his claws bearing the etchings of 17 successful conquests. He looked at Eva with eyes that had witnessed the fall of civilizations. "You have surprised us," he said without preamble. "This is not common." "We have surprised ourselves on occasion," Eva replied, gesturing to a seat designed for Krathyn physiology. "Please," Vex sat, his massive form dwarfing the furniture. "The Warlord Council believed humans were prey disguised as equals. Your cities are soft. Your people focused on growth rather than strength. We interpreted this as weakness, and now we see that you are something else entirely. A species that plants gardens while raising dragons, that builds schools while preparing for war. This is," he paused, searching for the word, "confusing." Eva smiled. "Welcome to humanity. We confuse ourselves daily." She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. "Warlord Prime, let me tell you about my world. Thousands of years ago, my ancestors were prey animals on a planet filled with creatures that wanted to eat them. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We were weak." Vex leaned forward, interested despite himself. "But we learned," Eva continued. "We discovered fire, created tools, built communities, and we found that some of the creatures hunting us could become partners instead. We domesticated wolves and they became dogs. We befriended horses and they carried us. And in the mountains, in the deep places of the world, we found dragons sleeping." The hologram shifted, showing ancient cave paintings of humans and dragons. It took centuries. Many died trying, but slowly, carefully we learned to understand them. Not to control them, Warlord, but to live alongside them. Dragons are not our weapons. They are our friends. Yet they fight for you, Vex observed. They fight with us, Eva corrected. Because we fight for them too. When the climate changed and their habitats disappeared, we gave them sanctuaries. When disease threatened their eggs, we developed medicine. When your behemoth came to destroy our colony, Tempest chose to defend it because this is her home too. Vex was silent for a long moment. You ask us to believe that strength and gentleness can coexist? I ask you to see that true strength is knowing when to fight and when to build. The Krathyn Empire conquers because you fear being conquered. You destroy because you believe it proves your worth. But what have you built, Warlord? What have you created that will last when your warships turn to dust? The question hung in the air. Vex stood and walked to the window, where Tempest was visible in the distance, playing with 2 colony children who had overcome their fear to bring her offerings of fruit. The Council will not accept this easily, he said finally. They will see retreat as failure. Then show them another path, Eva replied, joining him at the window. The galaxy is large enough for cooperation instead of conquest. Imagine what your people could achieve if you built instead of destroyed. Vex watched the dragon and the children, his expression unreadable. You truly believe this? I know it. Because we were once like you, Warlord. Humanity spent thousands of years at war with itself, proving strength through violence. But we learned that cooperation created more than conquest ever could. Our greatest achievements came not from defeating enemies, but from working together. And if I refuse, if the Council demands we continue? Eva turned to face him directly. Then you will find that every human colony in this sector has dragons. And unlike your behemoth, our partners fight not because they are programmed to, but because they choose to. Can you imagine facing an enemy that fights from love rather than fear? Vex met her gaze, and for the first time, Eva saw not a warlord but someone tired of endless war. Tell me, Commander, if the Council accepts peace, what then? Then we teach you what we know. Not weapons or tactics, but how to grow things, how to heal instead of harm, how to make allies instead of subjects. The universe has enough destruction, Warlord Prime. Help us create something better. The Krathyn leader was quiet for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tempest had curled around the 2 children who had fallen asleep against her warm scales, completely unafraid. I cannot promise the Council will agree, Vex said at last, but I can promise I will try. What you show us is strange and uncomfortable, but perhaps, he paused, watching the sleeping children and their dragon guardian, perhaps it is also necessary. The negotiations took 14 days. Warlord Prime Vex had returned to his flagship, taking with him recordings of the dragons, testimonies from colony residents, and something he had never expected to possess after a military campaign: doubt about the rightness of conquest. Eva spent those 2 weeks preparing for either outcome. If the Krathyn accepted peace, humanity would need protocols for integrated diplomacy. If they chose war, every colony would need to fortify. She worked 18-hour days, coordinating with Earth Command, reviewing defense systems, and spending quiet evenings with Tempest. You know they are watching us, Jasper Hale said one evening as he joined Eva on her usual perch atop the observation tower. Jasper was the colony's xenobiologist, a man who had spent his life studying how different species interacted. Every move we make is being analyzed by a dozen Krathyn military strategists. Good, Eva replied. Let them watch us live our lives. Let them see that we are not preparing for war unless they force us to. Jasper sat beside her, dangling his legs over the edge in a way that would have horrified safety inspectors back on Earth. Do you think Vex will convince them? I think Vex is tired. I saw it in his eyes. 17 conquests, Jasper. 17 worlds brought to heal. How many beings died to add those marks to his claws? At some point, even warriors grow weary of war. Below them, the colony had returned to its normal rhythm. Children played in the parks. Scientists conducted research. Farmers tended crops. And in the designated sanctuary area, 4 dragons rested. Their presence now accepted as naturally as any other part of colony life. On the 15th day, Vex requested another meeting. This time he brought the entire Warlord Council, 12 Krathyn leaders whose combined conquest numbered over 100 worlds. They landed in a formation designed to intimidate, but Eva noticed something interesting. They came unarmed and they asked permission to land rather than demanding it. The meeting took place in the colony's largest amphitheater, hastily expanded to accommodate both species. Eva stood before the assembled warlords with Tempest beside her. The dragon had insisted on being present, a fact that amused Eva but clearly unnerved several council members. "Commander Reeves," began Warlord Prime Vex. "The council has deliberated on your proposal. We have reviewed all evidence and considered all implications. We have a decision." Eva kept her expression neutral, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "But first," Vex continued, "we would see a demonstration, not of your dragon's power in battle. We have witnessed that. We would see how they live among you, how this partnership you speak of actually functions." Eva glanced at Jasper, who nodded. They had prepared for this possibility. "Very well. Follow me." She led the Krathyn delegation through the colony, showing them not military installations but schools, hospitals, and homes. At the primary school, children were learning basic dragon care alongside mathematics and history. In the medical center, Dr. Nadine Foster explained how studying dragon biology had led to breakthroughs in regenerative medicine that benefited both species. But the real revelation came at the sanctuary. There, the warlords witnessed something none had ever seen: gentleness from creatures of immense power. A young dragon named Ember was being treated for a minor injury by a veterinarian, barely a tenth her size. The dragon could have incinerated the human with a breath, but instead she held perfectly still, trusting completely. "This is Cassidy Harper," Eva introduced the veterinarian. "She has worked with dragons for 8 years. Cassidy, would you explain your work to our guests?" Cassidy looked up from bandaging Ember's wing. "Of course. Dragons are incredibly intelligent, emotional beings. Ember here scraped her wing membrane flying through a canyon yesterday. The injury is minor, but infection is always a concern. She came to me because she knows I can help." "The dragon trusts you?" asked one warlord, his tone incredulous. "Yes, because I have never given her reason not to. When Ember was an egg, I helped monitor her development. When she hatched, I was there to ensure she was healthy. As she grew, I taught her what foods were safe and how to navigate human spaces without accidentally causing damage. In return, she protects our colony and helps us understand her species better." Warlord Prime Vex approached Ember slowly. The dragon watched him with intelligent amber eyes but did not react aggressively. "May I?" he asked Cassidy. "Ask her," Cassidy replied, pointing to Ember. Vex turned to the dragon and performed a gesture of respect from his own culture, lowering his head and spreading his claws to show he held no weapons. Ember considered for a moment, then extended one wing, allowing him to examine the bandaged membrane. "Remarkable," Vex whispered. "Such power, yet such control." That evening, the Warlord Council gathered in private session. Eva was not present, but Thorn later told her what transpired. "There was debate," Thorn explained. "Some argued that humans were simply better at hiding their violent nature. Others suggested the dragons were mind-controlled, though our scans proved otherwise. But Warlord Prime Vex spoke of something the Council had never seriously considered: the possibility that strength and peace could coexist." "What convinced them?" Eva asked. "You did, or rather what you built here. The Council realized that in 3 years you created a thriving community on an alien world. In those same 3 years we conquered 2 planets and left them in ruins. You showed them that building requires more courage than destroying." The official decision was announced the following morning. The Krathyn Empire would cease hostilities with humanity and propose a formal alliance to the Galactic Council. The Behemoth was recalled and the warships withdrew to respectful distances. But the real change came slowly, in small moments that rippled outward. Krathyn observers requested to stay at Meridian Colony, not as occupiers but as students. They wanted to learn human methods of agriculture, medicine, and dragon partnership. Young Krathyn warriors began questioning whether conquest truly brought honor, or if honor might be found in creation instead. 6 months after the standoff, Eva stood once again on the observation tower. The colony had expanded, now housing both humans and Krathyn working side by side. In the sanctuary, Ember played with hatchling dragons while Krathyn younglings watched in fascination. Warlord Prime Vex joined her, moving with the easy familiarity of frequent visits. "My people are changing, Commander. Not all of them appreciate it. Change is always difficult, Eva replied, but necessary. The Council has voted to establish similar partnerships with other species. We will offer cooperation instead of conquest. It will take generations to undo centuries of reputation, but... He paused, watching the dragons and younglings play. Perhaps it is worth trying. Eva smiled. The fact that you are trying is what matters. Tempest soared overhead, her wings catching the light of Novaris' setting sun. She called out, a sound of joy that echoed across the colony, and from the sanctuary younger dragons answered. Commander Reeves, Vex said quietly, when we first came here we saw weakness. We thought we understood humanity. We were wrong. You were not wrong to doubt, Eva replied. You were only wrong to think doubt meant weakness. The strongest thing any being can do is question what they believe and change when they find a better path. As the stars began to emerge in Novaris' darkening sky, two species that had nearly destroyed each other instead stood together, watching dragons dance on the wind. It was not the end of all conflicts or the solution to every problem, but it was a beginning, and sometimes beginnings were enough. In the distance, children of both species laughed together, while dragons kept watch over them all. And in that moment on that distant world, peace was not just a dream but a living, breathing reality built by those brave enough to choose cooperation over conquest, understanding over fear and hope over hatred. The galaxy had not changed overnight, but in one small colony on one distant planet, the future looked brighter than it had in a very long time.